And we're going to do a countdown, and then we will be ready to begin. All right, so I am excited to bring to you my guest tonight because she and I met quite randomly. I don't think, of course, it was by accident. Perhaps both of us have not realized all of our goals and dreams yet, but we're on our way. And I'm so glad that she is still pushing and fighting for what she believes in. I want to tell you that tonight's podcast, Love Over Coffee, Voices Now Heard, is a tough one because my guest tonight is a survivor in so many ways. But I dare say that many of us have not been up close and personal to someone who is a human sex trafficking survivor. And I don't think we always realize what that looks like, what it sounds like, and what its impact is over time. And so tonight, my guest is LaKeisha Walker, and she's here to tell her story. And even though we are survivors of two completely different things, there are elements that are the same when it comes to abuse and how abusers groom. So I'm going to turn it over to LaKeisha. I do want to say, I always start with the same question, LaKeisha, and that hasn't changed. So I want you to tell us who you are, where you've been, and where you're going. And of course, please only tell us what you feel safe and comfortable sharing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited and thankful to be here as always. Um, where I've been through a lot, and I always give a brief description of some of the things so that people could understand how I ended up where I ended up at 17 years old. At the age of 2, as far as I can remember, my mom and my dad were addicted to crack cocaine and also heroin. My mother had thrown me off of a 3-story building, and I ended up in the DCFS system where I bounced around from house to house until my grandmother decided to take me in. I was then molested. I grew up in a narcissistic household where my grandmother was like an empath. She was like really kind and really sweet woman, but my grandfather was really, for lack of a better word, just evil, plain evil. Um, so I really still wasn't fully happy. By the age of 12, I had ended up getting raped by a local drug dealer um, at my mom's home. And by the age of 16, I ended up in my first extremely abusive relationship where I was beat constantly. Well, I was love bombed initially, where he would buy me, flowers and tell me I was beautiful. And he was super charming. And then came the beatings because I was walking down the street and he said I was looking at another young man in the car. And I'm just like, looking at who? And before I knew anything, I was being beat like severely in the face. And then he drugged me down the alley and just continued to beat me. I did not leave because I did not understand what was going on. And he made me think that that was love and that everything was my fault. I noticed that I did deal with severe self-esteem issues where I just did not love myself and I just could not see me being worth anything. I wasn't validated. So by the time I got 17 years old, I finally had gotten out of that abusive relationship because my family actually called the police on that guy at church because I grew up in church. Um, and I had nothing to do with it, but that was the only way I got out of that situation. So I'm walking down the street at 17 years old, fresh out of this other toxic relationship, and I meet a young man. He was a little bit older than me, probably around maybe 21, 23 years old. So he's having a conversation with me, and he's making me laugh. You know, he was very handsome. I didn't see anything strange about him that would make me think this is a bad person.
Mm.
So I began talking to this young man, and he asked me for my phone number, and I gave it to him. I didn't see any reason why I shouldn't. And we began talking, and we were like inseparable. We would talk on the phone every single day for hours. And he would ask me questions about my home life and
Mhm.
my family. And he did most of the listening. I did most of the talking.
Oh
So
yes,
I
I
told him,
recall those days.
yeah. So I told him like all of my basic history of how I didn't feel loved, and how my parents were addicted to drugs, and how my father died when I was 9 years old from a heroin overdose, and just everything. And he began to trauma bond me by telling me I've been through the same thing. I don't feel like I have anyone either. I feel like you have me. So you don't need to worry about anybody else. I'm going to be there for you. And temporarily, it was like a temporary fix for me. It felt like he was giving me the love that I was missing. So I began to just, be with this man, and we quickly jumped into a relationship. It probably was like a month in, and within a month's time frame, one day we was just laughing and joking how we would do, and he began to tell me that I was beautiful, which raised a red flag because he never had said that before. I didn't know that the man even thought that I was beautiful at all. And then he told me that I would make a good stripper, like in a strip club, or a good exotic dancer. So, of course, I'm wondering, why would this man say this to me? Where did this come from? It just came out of the clear blue sky. Um, but by the end of that night, sure enough, he had drove me to a strip club, and he had dared me to go into the strip club. So I didn't want him to make fun of me, or I didn't want to be shamed any further than I had already been in my life. So I did it. I go into the strip club because I'm thinking it's just going to a strip club one time. Like I can go in and come right out. But that wasn't the case. When I get inside the strip club, there's a man standing at the door, and there are like maybe six other girls, like strippers, and they was there with like clothes and everything, almost like this was already pre-planned. So they're telling me like, "Oh my God, come in the back. She's so beautiful. Like we can be a family." And they're like reaching and pulling for me to come in the back with them. In the meantime, the guy that I was talking to, who I later found out was a Romeo pimp, is talking to the other man at the door, who I later found out is a gorilla pimp. So real quick, I always do my education piece. The Romeo pimp is just basically someone who pretends to love you, pretends to be a boyfriend. Um, you really can't tell who they are by the way they look. You can pinpoint a Romeo pimp by their characteristics, right? So they're very narcissistic. They definitely have narcissistic tendencies. Because they'll gaslight you and make you feel like things is your fault. Like if you don't do what they want, they come out really sweet and really subtle and manipulative.
So they're the ones who bring you in. They're the ones
Oh
who
yeah.
are the coercive one.
Oh yeah.
And
Definitely.
because you've already been trauma bonded, you've already been groomed, they've told you everything that you want to hear. It
Yeah.
was actually easy for him to get you to do what he wanted you to do, because
Yes.
then he introduces you to the pressure person. It's kind of like, it just dawned on me, LaKeisha, it's kind of like when you go to buy a car, and first you get the sales guy out on the floor that wants to tell you everything you want to know. And then
Yes.
all of a sudden you're in the room with the guy that's got the paperwork.
Yes.
And
It's
now suddenly
exactly.
you're feeling the pressure to sign on this dotted line because, we've already showed you what you want to see, and this is what you wanted, and why aren't you, and suddenly you feel the pressure. So the gorilla pimp standing at the door, I agree, it was all pre-planned. I mean, we
Yeah.
already know the Romeo pimp and the gorilla pimp, but the whole situation was orchestrated, which is another piece of the puzzle when you are dealing with narcissists, is that it's all very calculated.
Yes.
There's an agenda long before you were aware. So, and that that can bring pressure on it as well, because you already like this person. You're already,
And
this
I
and
thought they loved me, so I'm just thinking like I need to keep this love. I don't know which is worse, the Romeo or the gorilla. The Romeo may be worse than the gorilla
right, right. Because
because
that's the one you believe.
yeah,
It's the one you got attached to that now makes no sense, and your brain is like this.
and a gorilla pimp does minimum coercion manipulation. They still do some manipulation and coercion, but it's not as drastic as the Romeo pimp, because the gorilla pimp is basically their whole approach or their characteristic is I don't have time for this. Like, if you don't do what I say, I'm gonna just mess you up. I'm gonna just beat you up, or I'm gonna just scare the heck out of you until you do what I say. Whereas the Romeo pimp is like, you want to do the right thing, don't you? Remember what we talked about. So it's really messed up the way they mess with your head, and which is why thus I have to spread awareness, because people are constantly calling the Romeo pimp their boyfriend and not knowing this is a whole Romeo pimp. It's not your boyfriend. So back to the story. So okay, so they pulled me in the back. So I had a split second where I could have made a different choice. I could have ran maybe out the door, and I don't even know that I could have done that, but this is just something that I thought about over time, like the
Right.
which I could have, but I didn't choose that. I chose to go in the back with the girls because it just seemed like a place of love, even though they had the clothes and this and that. I just felt like, well, maybe this will be like a family and maybe they will love me, right? So I go in the back with them. They getting me all dressed up. They're using manipulation further as well. Like, oh, you're a family. Like, have you ever danced before? And I'm like, no. I don't even think I'm pretty. Like, I don't even think I could be a dancer. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll give you a dance. So one of the dancers took me around with her, and she had literally given me a dance and kind of came on to me. And that was how I got into being a stripper overnight.
Now, LaKeisha, what about the other girls? Are they part of the game knowingly or unknowingly? Like, how are they just basically being used in the same way that you are? They've been groomed and they've been scared. What is some of that dynamic? And are there some, I guess, lead dancers that are more narcissistic in their manipulation
Oh, yeah.
of?
I am so happy you
This
always
is
say,
something we hadn't talked about before.
always
It
say,
just dawned on me. I mean, that's one of the things that, I want to say, thank you to everyone who's here, because LaKeisha and I have talked many times. And,
yes.
that is something that I didn't really think about until just now. What role are all those girls playing in the sisterhood?
Oh, yes. You asking me. And it's almost cult like, to be honest. Everyone plays a valid role. It's really 50-50, because you do have those dancers. You have some dancers that really are just dancing for themselves, right? Then
Right,
you have some dancers that feel like they call their boyfriends their security, but it's nothing more than a pimp. I don't care what nobody say. Like, I
right,
wish they would
right.
tell, but they call it their boyfriends, right? Their security. And then you have the dancers that's just flat out calling it just their pimp, and they may knowingly, be okay with being pimped because that's the only sense of love that they have. A lot of those girls
Mm.
are runaways, people that they don't feel like they are cared about. So, which is why, thus, I want to help people like that. And that's why I help people like that, because I know that they don't feel like they have that support. They don't feel like they have that love. And so they just
I'm
kind of
gonna
go,
write a question down. Hold on, I'm reaching for my pencil.
okay,
Because I'm thinking of something while you're talking. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
okay. So those, they are divided into different categories. And one thing that we had never discussed before, but I did mention on TikTok, is that I was considered to be a bottom B. Okay. That's what they called it. So even in the world of pimping or whatever, or even in the world of human sex trafficking, you still classified like on different levels, because you'll have your girls that they pretty much do you just like animals, like how you would have animals for sale, and it's like this one is a good chunk of meat and this one is less value, so that's how they do. And it really is based upon, I guess, how pretty they feel like you are, if people will value more, if you are more prone to do what they say or not, are you a
Mm,
troublemaker, do you know how to count money, things like that.
mm,
So the more fearful you are, and the more, you know, the more you're gonna do like what they say, and they scare you to do what they say. And on top of that, if you look like something, then that would make you be like a bottom B. So what they try to do is get you to put the other girls in line, and to manipulate and coerce. And it's basically like they train you to be a narcissist to bring in other girls. But see, Mans could never get me to do that. I literally got beat up because of, stuff like that, because he was trying to get me to, possibly talk to this person or whatever. It never happened. I could never put someone through the same hell as I went through. So I never understood that about people. If you know that you living in hell, why would you want to subject another
right,
person
right. Well,
to that?
see, and I mean, we've talked about, I know that I left my own situation when
Yeah.
I realized that not only was he gaming me, but he was using me to game other people. And it
Yeah.
was like, why in the hell would I help you bring other women
Get it?
into our situation
Yep.
that are unknowingly entering into a bunch of bullshit that you have orchestrated? It's like, no, it's like, you can screw me over, but you ain't using me to help you screw over other women.
Yes.
And literally and figuratively, I mean, these were women that I didn't know anything about, that he was doing a lot of things on the side with, but they were business contacts as far
Yes.
as I knew. And it was like, something's not right. Like, there's always these new people. Well, I have
And
a question before we go on.
okay.
So, in general, because we see those sex workers who talk about, I'm in control of my own body and I know what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing. How do you Are those the people you're trying to reach, or are those people legitimately in control of their body, and or is that such a groomed
No,
thought process?
I'm
I
trying to
mean,
reach anyone, whosoever will, right? So I'm
right.
literally trying to reach anyone who wants out, anyone who wants to help, anyone who wants to talk to someone who they feel like, wow, she been through some of the things that I've been through. Maybe not everything, but she have felt some of the pain that I felt, because what I have learned in this, let me see, 3 years that I've been out here like on a mission to just help other LGBTQ plus communities and women and teens. And I've come across a lot of different type of people. And
Mm.
initially when I started this thing, remember, I thought it was just like my story, and every story would line up to be like what I went through. And that wasn't the case. I came across some broken souls that they thought that they were in control, right? They maybe didn't even have a pimp. They just thought that this was a good thing to do. I'm here to warn those people too, because it's only a matter of time that maybe you will fall prone to that pimp that's in the club or whatever. Or it's only a matter of time that something bad could happen, even from a trick. Like if they happen to kill you in the streets. Because I've been through a lot, like a whole lot in this whole thing. So I'm just reaching for everyone. And I think that's the problem with our society, because a lot of people just want to be like, well, if the person did it willingly, then that don't count. Why does it not count when our system is designed for us to feel? Why does it not count when it's not enough help for like people that's in need, or people that may have children? Because some of these women do have children, and what I've heard on the streets is, I can't take care of my kids. I gotta take care of my kids by any means necessary. And I'm just using the same verbiage they use, right? So the whole thing is, they feel like it's so bad that they have to sell their body in order to take care of their child. And to
Well, and
me,
I
that's
think there's a lot to that word willingly, because it's kind of like, and I have not been anywhere near a situation like you have been, and yet at the same time, and we've talked about this before, earlier in the month. You know, we as women are groomed society and culturally to give away things that are easy for us to give away, and I mean our
Yep.
body, because we've been told, well, what you don't do, some other woman will. He's not going to stick around if he's not getting what he wants. I know my own friend is the one who said, if he ain't getting it from you, he's getting it from somewhere. And I was like, oh, no, 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 he loves me, and we're waiting for each other. And and little did I know, the truth was the truth, and it smacked me upside the head. And that was, he was getting it everywhere else except for with me. And so that willingly, there's a lot that goes into that word willingly.
Yes.
But you find yourself, and this is where victim blaming and shaming comes in. You find yourself in those situations where you're giving consent, but is it really
Is it
consent
consent?
when you've been groomed to believe that if you don't go along with it, whether it be in your situation or in mine, you realize you give in even when you don't want to give in, and you go along with things that you maybe normally wouldn't go along with, and you realize that consent is degrees. There are degrees of consent.
Yes.
Like, I can really like you, and I can go along with what you're saying because I really really like you. And then there are those times where it's like, I really really like you, and I want this to go somewhere, and I'm giving in because I'm hoping that's where you are. And then they've said all the right things, and you realize that's where a one night stand comes from. It's like, so he got what he wanted, and that was that. And then you realize a lot went into that consent, different from another consent. Um, so that's
I
another
to-
element. Yeah.
I totally agree 1000%. Because is it really consent? And I say all the time, like I told you earlier, if I had known then what I know now, would I have agreed to that? Really? I
Yeah.
didn't realize,
You
and
probably
that's
wouldn't have given him your phone number to start with.
exactly.
Right.
This was a complete monster. He may not have looked like a monster, but this man was a monster. The both of them were monsters, right? And then on top of that, I had no idea that I had an issue with childhood trauma. I didn't think that me having low self-esteem or any of that was an issue. The only thing I was searching for was the love and attention, but I had no idea it was a huge price to pay for where I got that from. And then on top of that, I did not value myself. Like I just wanted to mention, because you were saying like how a lot of times people easily give up themselves. I didn't look at it as being anything valuable. So if you don't look at it as being anything valuable, it's just like, oh, okay, take it. Like I
Right.
knew it was to a certain degree wrong, right? I knew like I shouldn't be a stripper, but I didn't know like that it's literally levels to this. And I definitely didn't think that it would end up with me being literally trapped in a room for some years on end,
So
being
tell
sold.
us. So after the strip club, and after that experience, and the
Yeah.
women, and the gorilla pimp, and the Romeo pimp, did you ever see the Romeo pimp again, or did he just disappear?
After about a couple of weeks to a few weeks, the Romeo pimp ended up disappearing. He just abandoned me completely, which is why I feel that he sold me to the gorilla pimp.
Right.
That's what all of that sizing me up
Right.
was about and everything in the beginning.
Right.
One night, he had dropped me off at the club as he usually did. And I know people wonder, like, so you just was stripping all the time? Yes, I was. He had convinced me that I needed to take care of us so that we could have a house and live a happy life together. And he was tired of taking care of me, which, man, he wasn't technically taking care of me. But because I was young, him taking care of me was just like him buying me a meal every now and again,
Right.
like stuff like that, right?
Right. No, no, I know they can make what they're doing seem huge while you're really doing everything, and it's still small.
Yes. So, basically I was cool horse into stripping at the club. So now I'm a stripper overnight. I'm going back and forth home to my grandma. My grandma seeing me dressed up, in exotic dancer clothes. But because she was old school, She never confronted me. She just had this look of shame in her eyes, but she never said anything. So I didn't say nothing either, because it's like, what do I say? Like, grandma, I'm a stripper, and well, all of this stuff happened. Like, I didn't know what to say. So I just continued dancing. Then we get to the gorilla pimp. The one night after I got done dancing, I was looking for the Romeo pimp. Like, where is he? I couldn't find him. At this point, the other dancers had already turned on me, which is what you can expect in an atmosphere of a strip club, because it's all about money and who is the best and things like that.
Who's
So
making the
because,
dollars? Yep.
yeah, they felt like, I guess I was taking their clients or whatever, and they just was like, I'm not having nothing to do with her. I had some of them like, I'm gonna cut your face when you get off. So it became a scary nightmare for me. So I'm trying to fan him. I cannot fan him. But there's the gorilla pimp standing at the door. So I'm asking him, like, have you seen the Romeo pimp? And he's just like, no, I haven't. But you need to go to the car and have a conversation with me right now. But the way he said it was like really rough, where I felt like if I didn't go, he was going to beat me up or something. So I
Right.
just went to see what he was talking about. And when I got to the car, he was just like, I'm not about to do none of that talking that you're used to and all of this. I'm just gonna let you know, either you're gonna sell your body for me or I'm gonna kill you. And if you tell your family, I'm gonna kill them. I mean, it was literally really to the point. It wasn't no like super duper manipulation like I was used to with the Romeo pimp. And it was really scary to me. It was almost traumatizing to the point that I started laughing because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like, this got to be some type of joke. I know this is a joke.
Right.
So as I laugh, the man takes my head and bangs my head into the window shield. So now it's just blood coming down my head. And that's what it took for me to understand that this is serious. Like, this guy is crazy. So after I got out the car, I just did what he said. Like, I didn't tell nobody. Of course, my grandma was starting to see like bruises and stuff, because that's not the first time he hit me. I just don't always have all that time to tell every detail of my story. But it was back and forth going back, from the club to grandma's house. But I started to run away. I didn't start to really try to run away until I got with that gorilla pimp, because he was being so violent and I was just so scared that I just didn't stop trying to run away. So I probably tried to run away at least 6 times. And I would just run to like a nearby friend's house, just anywhere, that I could, and stay like maybe to the end of the night or to the time passed for me to be at the strip club. And this man would find me on the streets and, grab me up. So the last time that I had tried to run away with him before I ended up trapped in a house was when, at this point, I had several black eyes, maybe, and I just was like, I'm getting away from this man. And I went to like my best friend and I told her, like, I'm getting away from this man. I can't take it another day. You know how you was asking me, like, what happened to you, Keisha? Why your eye black or whatever. And I wouldn't really tell you. Well, it's been somebody forcing me to, you know, have sex, for lack of a better word, and forcing me to like dance, because he was also forcing me to like sleep with people at the club. But all of this was like from the club at this point. So it wasn't nearly as bad as it was once I got trapped in the house, but it was still bad enough for me to be like, I'm not staying. And so I asked her not to tell anyone, and she said she wouldn't. An hour or two later, here's this man driving up through the grass, and at gunpoint, it had me at gunpoint and threw me in in his truck and everything. And he just was like, don't make me play with you. I'm gonna kill you. So you trying to get away? Since you keep trying to get away, now I'm gonna make it where you can never get away. And that's when he took me to this big abandoned house. I say abandoned. It wasn't technically abandoned because
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing he was there, but I say abandoned because it looked like the most dustiest, disgusting house that I ever seen in my life. And once I walked in, there was like just a bed, like a room. Like as soon as you walk in, there was like a little room, and there was a bed. I remember it had bolted locks on the door, and there was like just a nightstand with a TV on it. But it was like nothing else, right? Which was crazy. It was like already set up for whatever it was he was about to do to me. And then it was like a chain, at the bed. So he set me down, took me in his room, put put the chain on my hand and everything where I couldn't get away. And I just felt doomed. I really felt doomed on my way to this house. I didn't know what he was going to do. I just assumed maybe he about to just beat me up. But when I realized that he was about to trap me, that's when I started feeling just totally doomed. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this. And then he began to talk to me and tell me, you need to watch these movies. If you don't watch these movies, then it'll be hell to pay. And he was calm at this point because I was in his playing ground, So it was like he walked out the room and left me for about 2 days. And the movies was on repeat. And of course, at first, because I always been like a fighter on the inside, right? I felt like I'm not watching these movies. But eventually, I was ready to watch those movies because I was starving. I was thirsty. He just completely abandoned me there. And then he shows up 2 days later, like, I figured you weren't going to watch the movies, but I also figured you'd be ready to watch the movies because you see it's punishments for everything you don't do. So at that point, I began to watch the movies. He began to line people up literally and sell me. Just random, strange men, you know, would buy me. And it was just like a hell that would never end. And to make a very long story short, because I know I know you got questions and we kind of short on time, so I'm gonna just sum it up as quickly as I possibly
Just to
can.
say, we've got a comment on the Real Change page.
Okay.
The research shows that all women were coerced, enticed, preyed upon, and groomed to enter into this lifestyle. They are victims. This has been concluded. The number one is for financial reasons. Most often, it
Yes.
is for basic necessities, which are promised and provided at first. It's the perfect crime of a pimp because they do not perform the act. All the risk falls on her. She is made responsible if she gets caught. Women are thought of as whores regardless of their virtue.
Yes.
More services, you
It
know.
does not matter. Like there's people that who probably consider me as being one, just even though I didn't do it willingly and I didn't get to keep any money, right? None. That's what makes me the most angry is because it's like here I am being sold. My whole reputation was stripped from me and everything. And it just is what it is. So to make it make sense, the best thing for me to do at this point is to help people, help it to stop, help it to never happen in the first place to people. And that makes me feel like I'm contributing to like society in a way.
So how did you so I mean, I know we cannot compare traumas, that is a mistake, comparison is a thief of joy, and comparing trauma will make you think that you went through nothing and why the hell are you complaining? But at the end of the day, how do you get over this? Because I was with the individual for 39 months. I was involved in, you know, really what could be compared as a low key trauma situation. Although I was crying every day and I was,
Yes.
but LaKeisha, do you even like in your mind, and please don't ever take anything I say because
I'm not.
do you own that trauma or do you try to separate it? Because I know I've had to own my trauma in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that I was molested as a child.
Yes.
My need for attention and affection, conversation, that was all very prevalent with me. And I know that things I sought from others are things I gave freely to others. Okay.
Yes.
And I've had to own the fact that I'm a survivor and that I share what I share with people with whom I feel safe. I don't share all the details of all the craziness. Sometimes the details are still coming back to me. But when I think about being in a narcissistic relationship with an intimate partner, how do you wrestle in your mind with the fact that you were human sex trafficked, LaKeisha? It makes me
I
cry for you because I can't. I just, how do you?
I most definitely. Oh, it's okay. I love. coming on here with you. And this is one of the safest places that I feel. That's why I always say yes, no matter what I'm going through in my life. Um, I definitely own my trauma. And in that, this whole time, like I said, I just came out with everything publicly 3 years ago. But I've been in counseling and everything for several years. Even before the human trafficking, I was in counseling and stuff just because of what my home life was like. And I just feel like I'm the person that was meant to go through all of these different things so that I can help people avoid it. I own it in every sense of the word, you know, and I get tired of people thinking that is supposed to make me be perfect. No, I'm not perfect. I'm constantly learning every single day. The only difference is now my life is in the public eye, obviously. But
Right.
um, but I'm still learning and I'm still processing and I'm still like, wow, I cannot believe I was human sex trafficking. And sometimes I come on these platforms and I'm fine and you see me just wear like a blank face and tell my story. And other times I leave off, and I'm in tears. And I think that that's expected because it's just so much trauma, and some people will never understand what it's like to be me, and that's just the reality, or anybody else that went through, you know what I'm saying? So but I'm okay with all of that as long as I'm able to be relatable in a way that touches lives and impacts lives. It helps me to feel better about it. Like,
I was
what
gonna
really
say,
makes
and
me feel
that's the
worse is not
beauty.
being able to connect.
That's the beauty of this podcast is that I'm not in your shoes. I've not been in your shoes. We have worn similar
Yeah,
pairs of shoes. But at the end of the day, your lived experience is not one that I am a part of. And yet, you know, I think sometimes we judge
yeah,
what we didn't walk. And that is where I really want this podcast to be one of those places where we share the things that are hard to know, hard to hear, hard to understand, and even hard to believe and hard to think are possible. And yet, here's someone who walked the path of a human sex trafficking survivor. So it's more than just the statistic I see on the TV.
yeah,
Like, I consider you a friend and someone that I can relate to.
yeah.
And yet we've never met in person. But
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 yet I love you regardless.
knowing your story means when I watch TV, I realize I can't judge someone that is a complete stranger because I know someone who's not a stranger to me who walked that same road, and I know what she's going through, and so I know what someone else is going through. And that's where I think that there's the power in sharing your voice, and I know it's so hard. Um, and so as Gina says, stand proud, LaKeisha. You are beautiful and you are brave. So what does your life look like on a daily, and what is your nonprofit? Where are you now and where are you going? Because I know you still
I
got.
am going. Look, okay. I can't wait to talk about where I'm going. But where I am now, God has really brought me a long way and still is bringing me. As long as I have breath in my body, um, I have a wonderful, wonderful job. I won't mention the organization because I don't want people stalking me.
Right,
But I
right.
love the organization I work for. They empower women, and I'm still helping everybody every day. And I still have my own organization where I help human sex trafficking survivors specifically. Um, and also, so my life is like extremely busy. Like, I'm literally still rescuing people or helping to rescue people daily. And it's just so strange because I know, like, as far as in the atmosphere of my job, when I go and help these women, or men, because we help women and men, like, as far as my job career, and they often say, I don't know what it is about your voice, but something in your voice. And then they just burst into tears, right? And I'm thinking it's because I'm a survivor, but I don't always tell them that, but it's because I'm a survivor and I feel a person's pain, and I've learned those tools to be able to connect with other survivors, even if we haven't went through the exact same thing.
Right, right.
Um, so that's what I do. And then I also, I have 3 little ones. I am a single mom. So I'm taking care of them. That keeps me like extremely busy as far as helping people within the nonprofit. That goes as far as, helping to rescue. And like I was telling you earlier, I had learned that I had not to be so loud about, I wish that I had an organization where we grow little plants, but that's not the type of organization
No,
we have,
you're doing the
so
you're doing the work. I know we have an organization here called Natalie's Sisters. And Natalie's Sisters, um, they are basically an organization here that goes to the strip clubs and takes food and takes clothes and basically tries to be a friend to
yeah,
the women who feel as though they have no friend,
yes,
even the women who think that they are making the decision and being strong and doing it for
yes,
all the right reasons, and they work with these women daily, and many times it's months before someone leaves the world that they are trapped in. So it can take a long time for someone in my shoes and in your shoes to build up trust. So, what kinds
yeah.
of things does your organization attempt to do with the survivors that are on the street or in the clubs or
Mainly it could be anything they need, to be honest. Like we have literally sent people away, like on a bus, because these survivors are very similar to domestic violence survivors. They're trying to get away from this monster, right? So um, and we definitely don't expose their identity because it has become like so dangerous. Well, it was already dangerous, but I just didn't completely know the things that I've learned now on
right.
how deeply rooted human trafficking is, and just to protect their identity and everything. But of course, food, shelter. We've even helped people with children. We've had people who came out of that lifestyle that didn't even have like mothering skills. And I just believe, because my leader, my pastor, my leader, I love her so much, but I believe that, don't talk about the people, help them. I had a lot of people talk about me and still do, even though it's a lot of people that love me now, but it's a lot of people that talk about me. And it's like, don't talk about somebody if you're not going to try to help them. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that we push. Like, let's help.
What the hell could they be saying?
Oh, they talk. Like, they people find something to say no matter what. And it
Oh,
don't
isn't that
matter.
the
Like,
truth?
I think one of
Well,
the best things that could have happened for me is for me to be isolated. Back then when I was going through everything, I was so isolated. And remember, I told you, when I got out of it, I had people spraying their toilets with bleach and everything. Like, like I was just disgusting to them. So that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it isolated me into the arms of God. And I felt like it made me learn that I don't really need these people validation like that. Like, really, all I need is God and myself, and I'm good. So I am a loner. People tell you that, like, in everyday life.
right. No,
It's people
I've
calling me
become the
and I'm just
same
looking
way.
at my
Yeah.
phone like, I see you calling. I'm just not answering because I don't want to be bothered right now. I'm trying to protect my energy. So
Give me a
that's
cup of coffee in a silent room in the dark, and
it.
I'm like, you need something? You need to call back later.
Well, people
um,
can follow me on TikTok. I haven't been on there in a while. I'm about to get back on there. I just been busy, but I'm about to get back on there. LaKeisha Walker 777, I believe it is.
I don't
Um,
actually know. I haven't. Yeah, I haven't
Yes,
seen you in a
LaKeisha Walker
while.
777, or it's I forgot what the little nickname, because I have a nickname on there too. But I haven't been on there in a while because I've been so busy with everything, and I'm like, if only I can clone me. Like,
So
So,
what does your I guess I have to ask this question only because how open are you with your oldest daughter and with your
oh,
children?
extremely too open. Um, extremely, because she is the same exact age that I was when I got lured, and I'm so proud of her. Like, she's about to graduate and everything, but I'm extremely open, and we have these conversations daily, especially because of even what I do in my career, because I'm constantly seeing people all throughout Chicago who are being victimized on a daily basis. So even though I can't share like what exactly, but I let her know, hey, it's still dangerous. Like, it may
Right, it's still
what
dangerous.
happened to me, but it's still people being lured, kidnapped, killed, everything, like right here. So I don't mean to scare her like that, but I just tell her I don't want you to live in fear, but you do need to be cautious. And I just want her to hear me like a like a record
But you
player
know,
in
I
her
mean,
mind when
I
she's
was
like out in the
50.
world.
I had, I mean, you were 17
Yep.
and I was 50. And I had no idea that the individual I met, which was very much a Romeo, I used to have a list of names. And I would, and I can't even remember what they are now, but there were all these different personalities. Like,
Yes.
he would be he would, and one of them was, I called him something Romeo. They were all, I love the play on words. And so all of them were, you know, they all started with the same letter, something Romeo and something this and something that. And I can't even remember, my friend and I made a list because I can remember when I started to unravel and unpack things, it was like, oh, well, today he's being this way.
Yeah.
And in an hour, he'll be this way.
And that's
And yesterday, he was this way.
it's enough to
You know,
grab you.
I had no
Really.
idea that someone like him existed. And I was 50. So, I mean, obviously, I was love bombed and groomed and a lifetime of trauma. And, you start walking down a path that seems safe. And then all of a sudden you realize, whoa, wait a minute. So, and you were 17. So I can't imagine some of these young people today who still um, are unaware, live in
Yes.
houses where nothing is talked about, nothing is shared, nothing is known. Um, it's like
And
you're just teaching them to be prey.
yes, and it can become addictive, and people don't understand that a lot of times when I say that in speeches. But what I mean by that is you can become addicted to something that hurts you just because it's done, it's repetitive over and over again. So for
Right.
you, this becomes your norm. So as you were speaking, I was thinking about a time when he beat me up, and then right after, I love you, right? And it's like I'm scared to say I don't think you love me because then you'll beat me worse. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's those
Right.
types of things that they do to just
Well,
further
and
get
we
sucked in.
and I've told you this before, I mean, the grooming begins when you're a young child, and I can only relate it from my own perspective as a woman, and that is, I can remember when I taught preschool and kindergarten, and we tell the little girl, well, he pulled your ponytail because he likes you,
You
and
see?
and he's being mean to you outside because he wants to be your friend, and
Yeah.
these are the things that groom us to think that love with issues is somehow love, and that sex and love is somehow equated. And I mean, and the messages are so intertwined that, like I said, you can find yourself going down a road of which there can be, and we're both lucky, but there is no return. I mean, I know that LaKeisha speaks for voices who have been permanently silenced. And
Right.
I know that I also speak for voices that have been permanently silenced. Voices I have known in my life
Yeah.
and voices that I don't know, but that I have seen on the news or in my town. We had a situation here where a marriage of 20 plus years had been clouded by a lot of domestic violence over the course of many, many years. the EPO wasn't granted
Yeah.
by the judge, and within a couple of days she was murdered by the husband. And people were blown away by the story because it's like, whoa, we had no idea it was that bad. But it doesn't start out that bad. It's just like the Romeo pimp. It doesn't start out
No.
with, a hit upside the head. It starts out with, you're beautiful, and I love the time we spend together, and I'm so glad you're in my life, and God brought you here, and all. And then you get the hit, and you're like, your brain is trying to reconcile what happened to
What
the
just happened?
guy I met a month ago.
Yep.
Like, where did he go?
Yep.
And that's the addiction. That's where the trauma bond begins, because you keep looking for that person, but the person standing there in front of you is what really exists.
Yep.
But you're trying to wrestle with that 24/7, and as you're wrestling with it, and there's no rest for what you're wrestling with, days go by, and months go by, and a year goes by, and then years go by, and you look back and you're like, oh my God, I was in it for 39 months.
Yes.
How long was your start to finish?
About
Well,
6
start to
years.
finish as far as 2 years.
6
How
years.
long? Oh, 6 years.
So, yep. Six long years where I contemplated suicide many times, and I also wanted to kill him. And I thank God that God got me out of it before I could ruin my life and be in jail forever, because they
There
don't
are
have a lot of justice in these
there are
situations.
women in prison for that. There are women
Yes.
in prison that have taken control back and their power back by wielding the violence toward the perpetrator, and that is a growing population in prisons, is
And
women.
I
And
will
most
be
women are because of a man.
I will be, and that's what we have been discussing too, going into some of these prisons soon. So I'm excited about that. We have a lot of things in the works, because I just want to encourage those women, because I could have easily been one of those women. Like I told you, sometimes I would get on these interviews and say that, and they say, "Don't say that," and I say, "Why?" That's how I felt, and I need people to understand how severely depressed you can get, And I had ended up trying to take my life 3 times, even after I had gotten out of it, and it was just
Oh my
a lot
goodness.
that I had to go through as a result.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say, I love you, girl.
I
I
love
know
you too.
we got places to go and things to do. We may not know what places we're going and what things we're doing at some days, but we're going to get there.
Yes,
As I told you earlier, I know our paths have crossed for some reason, and you have certainly you've been instrumental in some of the things that I say and do, because again, I know you personally, even though we've never met.
yes,
I told her today, when I come to Chicago, it's a big hug,
yes,
and a big cup of
and a cup
coffee.
of
That's
coffee.
right. I have a cup of coffee. Hey Lorraine, thanks for being here. I wanna give you a moment, collect your thoughts. I want to do a shameless plug. So take a moment. For those of you who are watching on TikTok, I really want to appreciate your likes and your loves and your shares, your gifts. Thank you so much for being here. It's an important conversation for many of us to have, especially when they are difficult. And you don't have to have these conversations over coffee. That happens to be my drink of choice, but beer, wine, whatever, you can do it over whatever. But I think it's important to share these conversations. I also want to say that Love Over Coffee, this podcast, has grown a subscription box, and the subscription box is a self-love, self-care, rituals and practices and information and knowledge to help heal trauma. Because, as we said the other day, we know hurt people, but we also know that healed people help others and heal others. And so, the subscription box, I just started my TikTok shop today. And so eventually the subscription box is going to be in the TikTok shop. So we made another step. Um, but this particular box is about healing the inner child. Um, as I told LaKeisha, I never want us to think that the line between owning our trauma means that somehow we are to blame, but instead it means that you don't own the abuse, but you own your healing. And when you can own that healing, you will lead with peace, love, and light, and not your trauma. And that is a long road. And some of it starts with long before we met the trauma that stifled us in our development and in our healing. And yet, when we look back, we can now see the patterns of behavior and the things that may have led us not to expect respect or set boundaries. So, this particular box this month is about healing the inner child and going back and taking her hand, because that inner child learned to cope the best way she could. She learned to look at life a certain way because of what she had endured. And going back to hold her hand, to pull her forward and say, it is safe to change how you cope with things, and basically forgiving the inner child, because that inner child didn't know anything and her innocence was taken in some horrific ways. And so this particular box is about healing the inner child. And the boxes arrived yesterday, the box is in. And so, I'll be putting that together over the next few days. But LaKeisha, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any
Thank you.
final words?
Um, if you know someone who's struggling or possibly in human trafficking, and if they want to chat, I'm an open book. You can inbox me on Facebook, LaKeisha Walker. You can visit Honorable Women Inc. and shoot me a message and your number, and I'll give you a call. You can go on TikTok. It's LaKeisha Walker 7777. So it's 4 sevens. I don't know
Four
why.
sevens, and mine's 1111.
Yeah.
1111. So,
So
um,
yeah, but I'm here. I'm just here for community. I'm here to help in any way without judgment.
and if you can't find her, you can find me. And I'll be sure to be in touch with her. Um, Tomorrow night, my guest is someone from the journaling community. So I hope you'll tune in, show your love and support. Um, on the 18th, we've got Aunt Pat, who's been watching, I think, on TikTok. Um, but she's also sometimes on the Real Change page. So I want to make sure that we tune in for her. She was in, again, you can't compare traumas. I'm 39 months narcissistic abuse. LaKeisha was 6 years human sex trafficking. Patricia was in a 47-year marriage with a abuser, narcissistic abuser. And she left at almost 70. So it's never too late to start living life. On the 19th, I don't have a guest right now. It may be that we rebroadcast. If there's somebody out there that wants to do something, let me know. Otherwise, I have I have 3 years worth of, or 2 years prior worth of episodes, and some of them are quite valuable to watch again. Lindsay Deaver will be here on the 20th. She is a victims advocate with a local police department. She works specifically with trauma victims of all kinds, domestic violence, sexual abuse, um, and helps walk women through EPO process. Men too. I never want to forget that men are involved, but it is still predominantly women, and that is my own perspective. LaKeisha will be here on the 21st. We're going to do a continued update of the Gabby Petito case, and where it is. I don't currently have a guest on the 22nd, the 24th, or the 25th, but I think the rest of our month is filled up. So I basically got the 19th, the 22nd, the 24th, and the 25th. Good news. I will be having my dental surgery on the 26th, and I don't plan to miss, but if I have to, I will find a podcast or co-host or somebody who can carry forward for maybe a day or two. But I plan to be here because I'm committed to 31 nights to bring awareness to the issue of domestic violence. And this is the third annual 31 nights. And until I leave this planet, I plan to do 31 nights every year. So if you know LaKeisha now, you'll probably see her again. That's it. Welcome to Love Over Coffee. Voices Now Heard. We are a podcast and a platform for the marginalized, the silenced, and the abused. And we're here every night at 9 p.m. in the month of October. And I hope to see you back again tomorrow night. Again, thank you for the loves and the likes and the shares. And I want to say a special thanks to my moderators who are here. I never thought I would say my moderators like I'm someone important, but
You are.
Thank you so much, Sue and Cat Links, Pinky Iguana, and Angel. Thank you for being here on TikTok. And Mar, I need to make you a moderator as well. But I keep forgetting to do it, unless I already have and I don't remember, which is entirely possible. But I'm going to go ahead and end the live on TikTok. So thank you, everyone, and I will see you again tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Take care. Have a great night. Hey, Miss Aunt Pat Jones, we will see you in a couple days. So thanks for being here. Take care, everybody. All right, so we're not on TikTok. So now I want to come over here to the Real Change page and the Real Change group and the 1111 group, and we've upgraded YouTube. If you have liked us in one place, go like us in another. Like the page, share the page. Tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. The YouTube page is Real Change LLC 432. So I guess it's because maybe there are some other real changes out there. I don't know why we had to do the number, but anyway, Real Change LLC 432. Good night, Miss Karen. And I will see you again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. So I'm going to end the live stream. Thank you, LaKeisha, for being here. I finally learned how to spell her name right today. Because, I had the I, and I don't know. But anyway, we got it right now. I shall not forget again, hopefully. Sometimes autocorrect, though, does not help the situation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lolita, for tuning in tonight. Please leave comments. Message me if you need anything. I'll put you in touch with the right people. So, good night, everybody.